Tick, tick. What's good? You know who it is. It's your boy, Big Tank Hank, coming at you with a new live stream. And who do I have in here with me
Fish.
tonight? None other than a good friend of mine, somebody that I can say that looked in, dropped nuggets on me here and there, from the very beginning of me starting this. One of the first chats that I knew existed that I would actually come and visit. It's James of Fish Room Fever. What's
How's it
happening?
going,
What's
everybody?
happening?
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. It's long overdue. Um, and I'm glad to see how well things are going for you. I try and drop in on everybody from time to time. I lurk a lot more than I talk, and I've been trying to work on that the past couple weeks. Um, but let me preface this with I'm nobody special. I'm not a big channel. I don't claim to be or think I am. But I've kind of gotten just high enough up there to where I can disrupt the chat when I say hello, and then it kind of just bombs into Fish Room Fever. What's up? So I've kind of just been like, let me hold back a little bit because I'm interrupting people's chats. But just know I'm always watching y'all.
Most definitely, most definitely. Hey, but that's a beautiful thing, man. When you the first time, that happens, and you know, especially me, I'm trying to tell you,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, you've seen me before. Oh man, yeah, what? For real? But that's cool though, man. That's cool. But hey, you are bigger, maybe not channel wise, number wise.
Sorry, I forgot I had. Let me turn this off, whichever phone it's on. I had one of the chats going, and I don't know where it is. Now it's doing a replay somewhere, and it won't tell me where it's at.
Uh-oh.
Let me just turn.
Hey, I heard my name.
It's this phone. All right. All right, we got the phones completely off. I hate that it does that. I had the volume off when I was listening or watching the live chat, and then it goes to a replay and it kicks the volume up again. Sorry about that.
Hey, Dedican, I just was hearing you on James's phone over there. Hey, let me see.
Yeah.
Let's go to chat and see who all fell in the door. Now you good. Take top Tropes, first person in the room. How do? Fishy Biz Aquatics. What's going on, my brother? Geek Boy. Mridul Singh says he won't be able to catch the live, but he'll be able to catch the replay. Mridul, thank you though for coming in, following through, and showing love. J Dog 67. Howdy, everyone. What's going on? Jeffrey Watts. What's going on? Melvin Reeve. Melvin, what's happening, man? What's happening? Kayla. Bob. What's going on, Bob? What's going on? Chalupa No Tomatoes. Hello. Thank you for coming through. Kenny E. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Casual Aquatics. Deborah Lewis. Foxy Fishes. John McKenzie. Welcome, y'all. Fat Man Aquatics. Welcome, welcome. Thank y'all for coming through. And you see who we have there on camera? We got James of Fish Room Fever.
I just want to say they're doing a great job in the chat. We got 20 watching and 19 thumbs up. It only gets one better than that, but very much appreciate y'all doing that.
Yes, thank y'all very much. Thank you. Survival LT, what's going on? All right. So give everybody a brief little rundown of who James is.
Absolutely.
Who James is. Where did he start? Origin story. How you got into the fish fam. Let us know.
So James was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. On the beach. Spent a lot of time on the water. My parents, when I was born, they had a shrimp boat. That was the business. And I actually spent the first year and a half of my life living on that boat. Not that I recall it, but they didn't own a house at the time. That was where they lived. Love it. So, progressed from there. They went into marine construction. So again, it was very much a lot of my growing up was, after school, I'd be out on job sites, if you will, always, on the water, always interacting with, aquatic animals, all the different little critters and things and all that wonderful stuff. And it just it got into my blood. At one point, my father had owned a fish store. I don't really recall it, but I had like this vague memory of it. And I mentioned it to my mother, and she's like, yeah, he had a fish store set up. And I was like, okay. Now, I don't remember it, but it's just kind of like this little cloudy flash there. So I thought that was neat. And I really didn't find out that was more than just an odd thing in my mind until about a year ago. So that was a very, very cool thing. My father passed 20 some odd years ago. So it was a nice little reconnecting point almost, if you will. But moved up to Tennessee. Oh, goodness. I guess it's been about 15 years ago. And it never left me. I've always missed the ocean, always missed that connection with, aquatic nature. At one point was going towards a marine biology degree. Life happens, you meet people, things change, you have kids, so didn't pursue that, but was still very much into aquariums. I did take a brief time out of the hobby after the kids were born. It was just not even so much that having the tanks was overwhelming. It was just like you have things like, oh, kids throw a handful of pennies into an aquarium, stuff like that. So it was just one of those things. Kind of took a break from it. But when I had taken that hiatus, I had been breeding red belly piranhas, and that was kind of my only stint into breeding. I was a lot bigger into monster fish and saltwater back at that point. This time around, I don't really have monster fish, and I kind of got my toe in the water on saltwater. I am kind of converting over a saltwater live rock tank into a different aquarium, and I'm going to do a reef. I really miss having a reef tank. I miss the corals, and seeing like what Bob Kaler's got going on with his fish and corals. It makes it that much harder to not do it, just because he's got some really nice setups. It's good to see you, Bob. But I got back into it, I guess, a couple of years ago now. And it was actually Mrs. Fever. She said, I really think you should set up another fish tank. Because I had the fish tanks when I met her. The first night I met her, actually, we were just kind of talking. And I was like, I'm really into aquariums. And she's like, oh, you have a fish tank? And I'm like, I've got like 2,000 plus gallons worth of big fish tanks. She's like, well, you have pictures. And so she's looking at fish and all that stuff. And she's like, that's awesome. I love it. And that's when you've got a keeper, when you're showing a girl your fish tanks and she's into it, right? So
most definitely.
She came back and said, you should set up a tank. And I was like, yeah, just set up one tank. And I ended up getting a male and a female Bristlenose Pleco. And it just kind of exploded from there because they had babies. And that was, for the most part, a first for me. Like I had intentionally worked on breeding the piranhas once I saw that I was, that I had a male and female, and it was something that I could probably do and had researched into. But I wasn't really familiar with just fish randomly and all of a sudden breeding in the tank, because Bristlenose weren't really a thing in my area. It was common plecos when I had gotten out of the hobby. So those popped out, and then it was another tank. And then it was another tank. And then it's, well, I want to do, this fish, but I need a different tank. So it just kind of progressed from there. And it's amazing how many people keep aquariums. I just want to say that. I was working in retail. I did retail management for years. And at one point I was talking to a guy, and it didn't even start about fish. It was about water. He'd asked me when we were going to have some gallons of water in stock. And I was like, well, told him the date. And he said, well, I really need it for my aquariums. And so we got talking aquariums. And then a lady, 2 customers behind him, starts talking about her aquariums. And then there's another lady in line that starts talking about aquariums. And it was just like, there's so many people that keep fish. It's amazing. And that one particular guy, he was having some issues with his fish tank, and fish were dying and things like that. So I started helping him, and he'd come in and he'd be like, okay, I went and got my water tested. Here are my numbers. This is what's going on with my fish. What can I do? And really, it was through trying to help him that the actually forming a channel came to be. Actually forming FishRoomFever, because I just had my generic, where I watched YouTube, but I didn't have anything that would be considered a brand or something that I wanted to be like, this is my channel name. And so I started just posting little stuff on there, and I was like, I really want to just try and help people, have a place where they can come to, they can contact me, they can leave a comment on a video, because we're just trying to, oh, here's my phone number, just call me to anybody that needed help. I get enough telemarketer calls, and I don't need to extend my warranty, right? So
Right.
I set that up, and people enjoyed it, and it's just kind of progressed, and I've been extremely blessed. Very, very grateful. I can't say how grateful I am. It's amazed me how many people tune in to watch little old me. So I'm very humbled by that. And it just kind of grew, and it went to the multi-tank syndrome. And that's where FishRoomFever came from. I was like, I want to do an actual channel. I want to do a brand. Hey, Chattanooga Ed, there's my buddy. Good to see you. He's working in his fish room. And I said, well, multi-tank syndrome. And so I started thinking, because my mother's got a degree in psychology. So I'm thinking like medical terminology and syndromes and stuff like that. I want to kind of play on that. I'm like, well, I went from having, 8 or 9 tanks in a room, multi-tank syndrome, to setting up a full-on fish room, to having multiple fish rooms. And I'm like, well, let's just call it FishRoomFever. I like that. I think that'll work. I checked to make sure that nobody else was using it, and sure enough, it was available on everything from YouTube to .com to Instagram. There was nobody using it on any platform. So I went with that and have been trying to make that a thing, so to speak. I forget. I think it was Mean Girls, where the one girl, she's trying to make a word a thing. She's trying to make it catch on, and everybody's like, "Stop saying that. It's not a thing." And sometimes I feel like that. I'm like, I'm just trying to make it a thing.
Huh. But, no, it's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. You catch FishRoomFever. Now looking back, had I known that we were going to have to deal with the whole pandemic, the medical situation, I probably would have picked a name that didn't include fever in it. But I think it works all right. So that's kind of led us to where I am now, and I'm just doing my thing. I was very, very fortunate that I had enough support via YouTube last year in June that I quit my job. There was, retail management. It was crazy with everything going on in the health situation, with the world. And it just got to be overwhelming and kind of scary. Everybody got really, really hateful, customer wise. I've done everything from collections to running a truck stop back when Pilot was doing the price gouging that they finally got, accused of years and years later. I was manager at a truck stop when that was going down. So dealing with, mad truckers with tire thumpers. I've dealt with a lot of upset people, and it was still too much stress, because people come in and they'd be cussing you out over toilet paper, and they'd be trying to get on your truck while it's unloading in the parking lot. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. And, there was at one point my assistant, she ended up catching it. And so I had to stay home for 14 days and wait and see if I had it and get tested and all that. And I've got 2 little boys. One of them has, severe breathing problems already. So that was kind of an eye opener and very scary. And I'm like, it's just not worth risking his life going and doing this every day. There weren't a lot of safety things in place at the time that should have been at work. So like we didn't even get, the plexiglass that a lot of places have now. Yep. We didn't even get that until our state had reopened the first time. Whereas a lot of places had it, as soon as it started closing down. So things like that, it was just kind of the push. And I talked to Shy, Mrs. Fever, and I talked to my mom because I'm very close with her. So I consult her on a lot of decisions, and she does a lot of fish tank stuff with me. You're going to see a lot of her in upcoming videos. She's going to be helping me build the stand for the 220 gallon. And she also reseals most of my tanks because she's done a lot more silicone work than I have. So this tank right here sits directly on top of a tank that's the exact same as it is from a pet store. So if you've been in the pet stores that have the sliding black doors, and usually these are stacked pretty high, that's what this is. She resealed the bottom tank on there, and she's resealed a lot of other ones. So we have fun doing stuff like that. But I consulted her, and we kind of looked at everything, and I said, if I actually take that 70 hours a week that I'm at work, and I take some of that time and I devote it to this, given what the current needs are and bills and stuff, can at least make it. And that's where I'm at. I'm making it. I'm very blessed that I was in a position to be able to do that, both where I had set myself up at and where all these awesome people have supported me. And it's really one of those, I said this the other day on one of my streams, I would rather be happy and at home with my kids and have $7 in my pocket than be gone and stressed 80 hours a week, and have money that I don't have time to spend. As long as the kids and the fish are fed and the bills are paid, that's what I'm worried about. So it's been an adventure. It really has. There's been ups and downs, and it's been interesting going from, I don't want to say I could do whatever I want, but going from, maybe we ate McDonald's 6 times this week or something like that, to, we hold off and, not eat out so much, that type of stuff. But I definitely, and I know this isn't necessarily fish related, but this is very much me related and kind of where I stand with things. I feel like if people looked at what really makes them happy, a lot more people could be happy and spend more time with their family or their fish or their hobbies. If people weren't so focused on keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, I have to have that new stainless refrigerator. I saw a lot of that when I did appliance delivery. I owned an appliance delivery company, and there was a lot of that. People would spend $10,000 to renovate a kitchen with brand new stainless appliances, even though they just bought new appliances the year before and everything looked great, just because the next door neighbor got stainless steel appliances. So I very much have drifted away from that lifestyle, if you will, so to speak, and just focused on a legitimate maintaining joy, I guess. But I digress.
Amen.
That's my other thing is, just happiness and motivation. So I get off on that tangent sometimes. You'll have to forgive me.
No, that's a beautiful thing, because I am at this point mentally working on that, but I want to be, in that position, put my family in that position, because, from what I do, it's, when I say it gets old, oh my God, it's so old. And me being someone who has a genuine care, what, how the, individuals that are locked up where I work, how they're treated,
right,
being fair, those things actually really matter to me.
Yeah.
So everything surrounding that job getting done weighs a ton, weighs a ton. And when I say cherish, when that whistle blows the last, second, and it's time for me to go home for my 3 to 4 days, oh man, I don't want to go back no more. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, I understand. There was a point where I very much loved my job in retail. I loved it to the point that I wanted to go do it. And it was very much things like you mentioned, not necessarily the overall well-being, but I wanted people to enjoy coming to work. I didn't want people to go, oh no, it's Monday, I got to go back to work. I wanted the employees to have a good work environment, because when the employees have a good work environment, it helps create a good customer environment. And when you create a good customer environment, that, does affect people's lives. And that may sound crazy, but how many times have you gone somewhere and you had a bad experience in a store or in a drive-thru or something, and that bugged you the rest of the day? You're going, man, that lady, she shouldn't have said that, or I can't believe that place was a mess, or, whatever. They didn't have anything I needed in that store. And now I'm, 30 minutes late because I had to run over to this other store and I got to go pick my kids up, and it just ruined my whole day. So I could very much relate to that. Um, but I think as we go through different seasons of our lives, we find different things that we're meant to be doing. And as long as I feel that I'm putting out a value in some way, shape, form, or fashion on this platform, then I'll very much be fulfilling a need, so to speak, and be living my best life, as Haley would say.
Amen. 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 It is definitely a beautiful thing to be able, to marinate like that,
Yeah,
and then to have such a hobby, to be into that, the fulfillment that you get from this is over the top,
it
it's
is.
over the top.
It really, really is. And the community we've got on here is amazing. So I see Bob Kaler in there says you're 21 away from 1,000. So let me
I,
just say, if somehow you're hanging out right now and
I
you
think
haven't
I'm a little more
subscribed,
than 21 though.
maybe I don't know. I just see. I thought maybe you picked up a whole
No.
bunch before since the last time I looked. But
Bob is wishful thinking for me, Bob. Thank you, Lord.
hey, you never know. Either way, if you ain't subscribed already to Big Tank Hank and you're hanging out in here, do me a
Ah,
favor. Do me a personal favor. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching this after the fact, catching that replay, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. But
me too, y'all.
yeah, this community we've got is absolutely amazing, um, and I love the fact that Bob is here because Bob is kind of the one that got me in, I guess you say, involved on a face-to-face level with this community. I very much was in, I'd hang out in the fish chats and I'd watch the shows and stuff. And then I ended up meeting Bob because he was a local guy. He introduced me to Chattanooga Ed, my buddy.
Okay, okay.
And it just kind of grew from there. I got to know Rack and Chris from Multi-Tank Addiction. And then, somehow I end up talking to John at KG Tropicals. And it's just all the awesome people, the whole Texas, I said Texas because Kaler said thanks, Texas, but the whole Tennessee Fish Mafia, getting to meet everybody around here.
Texas is in the house, though.
Yeah. Good to see you, Texas Fish Room. But it's really been a blessing. It really, really has. So
And for me to hear how much your wife is behind it, man, look, you can't, I've been married for about to be 22 years. And any type of little critters is not really my wife's thing, but
right.
she's a supporter. She's just a quiet supporter. But yes, man,
That's a blessing.
I'll do, I'll have some little old, what I consider, most folks might consider to be a small win in here, but it's big for me. And I go tell my wife, hey, guess what I just found, in one of our tanks, or this happened or that happened, and I can tell she's like, I really don't understand, how how good that is, but it makes you happy, it makes you happy, and
Absolutely.
I'm supporting you. And I have to thank her very much for that one. Very, very much.
I want to say congratulations to Kaler Aquatics. He mentioned he's going to be an affiliate for John and Lisa at KG Tropicals. That's awesome, Bob. I'm super happy to hear that. I may or may not be. Without going into too much detail, I have to make sure it's not going to conflict with something else that I'm working on. But I'm certainly hoping we can work it out to where I can do the affiliate with John and Lisa and be able to do the other thing that I'm working on. But that, I will say, that's the only downside to the community is working with the politics and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. That's the only downside. I mean, I really wish that we could take, and I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say the top 20 fish tubers and be able to get them all in a room together and go, for the sake of the community, can y'all do this? You help, whether it was just a, hey, we're here to answer a Q&A. And not necessarily that I legitimately want to, fly all these people to the same place, but I just wish that in terms of for a more sustainable community, we could kind of sometimes set the politics aside, because I talk to everybody. we won't go into the different beefs, if you will, that are on the fish tube.
Yeah,
But I talk to everybody. I talk to all sides. And that's kind of like Ed has mentioned. You know, we're Tennessee Fish Mafia. We're friends with everybody. We don't pick sides. You know, I might be sitting there messaging Joey on Instagram and then turn around and message John from KG and then turn around and message Rack and then, you know, send Bob a text. And it's like, I just want to talk to everybody. I just want to be fishy friends with everybody, you know? So if that's the one thing that I personally am kind of trying to work towards is breaking some of the barriers down that you run into.
Yes.
Very much.
Look, I totally agree. Oh, Big J, welcome.
Big J, what's up?
I totally agree. You know, I mention it periodically on here. It's disheartening sometimes, and I'm not gonna get deep into it either, but I had to maneuver, you know, through early on. Now, for the most part, most people, they know what I'm about, you know, and how I move. So it's not really an issue for me anymore. I just talk to everybody, you know.
Yeah.
But early on, it was like, no. I don't understand that. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't.
Yeah. And I'm not, you know, in the mindset that I'm going, can't we all just get along? I don't think everybody's going to get along ever. But I very much look at it from the fact of, I guess I take the retail perspective on it. You know, when I was at work, they didn't pay me for what my politics were. They didn't pay me for what my religion was. They paid me to be there to do a job, and that was the job. You know, I kept the other stuff out of it. And that's how very much, you know, I could come on here, and I've been on people's streams where we could be polar opposites on politics. We could be polar opposites on religion. That don't matter to me. I'm here to talk about fish. I want to know what you got going on in the tank behind you. You can ask about what's going on behind me. And, you know, we could just have fun and, you know, let's embrace what we have in common. But I digress once again. And Bob's probably doing shots every time I say I digress, or if you will.
Hey, Cali Kitten a ways back up the chat asked, what fish do we keep?
Oh, goodness. You want to go ahead on that one first, or you want me to?
I can make a run for it because my little space, everything right here is so close to me, it'll probably be easier for me to run through mine. Let me see. I have right now mostly guppies. Mm-hmm. I have a few fancy projects going on right here around me. I have some pure blonde endlers here. I have a blonde fancy endler project going here. I have a snakeskin endler blonde project going here. I have some Neoheterangia elegans, aka tiger teddies. I have three right here that I'm about to get my first fry. I've had them maybe 5 months now, and I think my first fry is about to drop. I have two convicts, a male and a female, right down here to my left. Straight behind me is kind of a mismatch hodgepodge, if you might say. I have some least killifish in there. I have some male guppies. I have peacock gudgeon. I have a Florida flagfish that I found last weekend in a feeder tank at the corner store. A win. It was very little. I didn't know what it was, so I posted a video. Hey, what is this?
What is right? Very nice.
Right down, I have two more guppy projects down there. In the garage, I have a Cichlid Pond that's right at about 55 gallons, but it's an actual tote, so it has like a footprint like a 40 breeder would, as opposed to a 55-gallon tank. And I have 3 Venustus fry, 2 Jaguar Cichlid fry by 2 inches in that one, and then I have the same type of tote with maybe 200 blonde endlers in it, and that's all of my. Oh, and I have a 30-gallon tote with a mixture of endlers with some high sailfin mollies in it also. That was it for me.
Very nice. All right, let's see if we can give this a run here. I've got the bucktooth tetras behind me, the exodons. The tank below that you can't see, it has got my baby datnoid and a small barred bisher that's growing out. We've got, there's also a Medusa Pleco back here and some Siamese algae eaters. We've got guppies and a vampire Pleco, a blue phantom, a green phantom Pleco, both of those Plecos. I've got a colony of snowball Plecos, a sultan Pleco, a rainbow fish, angel fish, about 15 different types of tetras. Lots of different types of tetras. I've got the Caribe piranhas. I've got, oh my goodness, tons of different bristlenose variations. Lots of different guppies and endlers. Everything from snow crosses to some of the LRB fancy stuff, like the purple kois that he made. Blue dream shrimp. More bishers. Green terror. A vieja. There's more that I'm not picking up, but that's a general rundown. I'm sure I'm missing some things. If I went like tank by tank by tank, I probably still would miss some things, just because some of them I've got fish and I'm like, I don't even remember what that is. Oh, I've got the Heterandria formosa, the least Achilles that I collected down in Florida when I was hanging out with Daniken Aquatics, Chattanooga Ed, and Father Fish. I've got the Gambusia that I collected down there. A bunch of other stuff. Lots of different strains of guppies and endlers and fun stuff like that.
Okay, good deal. GRB, John Larson. We are Skipper Aquariums, Fat Man Aquatics, Vinoski Tanks. Welcome, y'all. Welcome in. Big J. Welcome in, y'all. Welcome in. Hey, Chattanooga Ed, if you still in here, man, you know, you're on my list. You're on my list. Mississippi Hippie, thank y'all for coming in. Hey, all of my people, my day ones now, when Big Tank Hank first fell up in here and I was in y'all's live stream, I haven't forgotten y'all. The ball went to rolling on me so fast. And when I finally realized, I'm like, oh man, you know, my people, I got to go back and get my people, you know, and bring them on up here. Ergo, FishRoomFever.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad the ball got to rolling on you like that, but it's a blessing. It really is. But it definitely, you know, has its down. It's, I guess you could say downsides. It's easy to kind of lose track of time and go, oh man, I've been trying to talk to that person for 6 months now,
Yeah.
and we just haven't worked it out, you know. But I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, because what initially happened to me, there's a lot of people who, you know, you talking back and forth, and you just mention it, and you're like, hey, you know, hey, you want to come up? Hey, okay, you interested? Oh yeah, come on. Oh yeah, I don't have no problem. Let me see what date I got. You know, whereas my people, because you know, when I made the messenger, that messenger earlier, when I put all, you know, my people in there. See, that's the one I got to go back to, because, you know, it's like I see them every day in that thread, but you know, just having regular conversation, you know, friends over there just having regular conversation, and it just wouldn't dawn on me, man, you need to go through this list and see who, because I mean, nobody. It's making me feel like I'm neglecting y'all, and I'm sorry. I'm
It is,
sorry.
and it just gets worse. In all honesty, because I'm at the point that I'm like, man, where do I even begin? You know, there are so many people. It's like, well, if I just choose this person, I don't want this other person to feel slighted. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
But you know, all you can do is what you can do. So
Right.
hopefully people understand that.
Right. But it's a beautiful. I wouldn't change it, man. I wouldn't change it. It's we can say, repeat it as much as, you know, it was the it was so therapeutic. It has been so therapeutic for me. It has been it came along just at the right time. I mean,
Right.
all of these things, you know, to where I can say it was so good that it was easy to forget and to lose, you know, lose your place.
Yes.
because you know, I mean, man, when I first started sitting in Nathan's live stream,
Yeah.
uh, God rest his soul. When I first started sitting in his live stream, and he called me up for a Monday where he interviewed me, man, and it just went from there. I didn't have to focus on that busted Achilles and
Yeah.
almost losing my house and my car getting repoed, all of this stuff going on.
Yep.
Oh man, I'm sitting here and can't provide for my family. I feel like I'm such a, all this hair was growing in on my face, and people didn't know that wasn't normal for me. But man, and that's been 2 years,
Yeah.
almost 2 years now.
Well,
It's
just
been
remember you have a 100% track record for surviving everything you've had to deal with in your past. You've made it through everything so far. Just keep that in mind when you run into hard times.
amen, 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 amen. Can't get no realer than that, man.
I like what Fat Man Aquatic says. He says, have a contest to see who the next guest will be. LOL. Something, yeah. So I honestly, the way I've got it, just to kind of try and bring added value, as I offer like a first priority, if you will, to my members, because it's something I'm always trying to bring more value. If you're in there and you're given that monthly, fee, putting it to the cause, part of the family, I feel like I want to bring everybody value. So when I'm like, all right, I want 100% value for everybody, free of charge, and then people are giving me money, I'm like, all right, I need to give you 150% value. How can I do that? So I kind of started with them. I'm like, hey, if you're a member and you want to come up, let me know. I'm always open to have up anybody, member or not. And I'm not like booked up or anything. Mine is very much wide open and on the fly, if you will. So, there have been live streams where 5 minutes before the stream, we change it up. Or it's like, well, we're just going to wing it tonight, and see what happens. Because a lot of times if we try and plan one out, to the T, we're okay, we're going to talk about this topic. And we're going to do this. We may get into the talk about the topic and then people are upset because we didn't get to many questions. So then I'll have a Q&A night. I'm like, all right, Ed, let's do Q&A tonight. We'll just leave it wide open, no topic. All right, cool. Well, last week we had 50 questions we didn't get to. Now we're open for Q&A tonight, and nobody's got questions for us. So it's like, all right, we're always on the fly. Like we got backups. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We can always kick into something else. But, it's just having fun with it and, rolling with the punches. I was talking to you a little bit about the fish swap that Ed and I went to this past week up in Cincinnati. That has probably been the most surreal thing for me, was this particular swap, because, again, like I was telling you before, and I said, I'm just me. I'm just another fish nerd hanging out, loving tanks and loving life. But Ed and I are standing in line, and a guy walks up, and I've got my FishRoomFever logo hoodie on, and Ed's wearing the FishRoomFever logo t-shirt. And he looks, he's like, oh, y'all watch FishRoomFever too? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually me. And we got to talk to him and hang out. That was super cool. And then after we, so just real quick, the way they had it set up is you got in line, they came through and they checked your temperature, you paid your admission fee, which was only $3, and then they gave you a wristband. So then you stood in line with your wristband, and they had 2 different rooms with the table set up, and you went through one room in a one-way line, which was very different than how I'm used to doing fish swaps. Usually you kind of bounce around and look at tables, and you're like, I might come back and get this. Let me see what other blue guppies are available here. So you went through the first room, you went through the second room, and if you wanted to go through again, you went to the back of the line. I had brought a bunch of stickers. So, I love giving out stickers to people. I love when people want stickers. So I brought about a stack like that of stickers. Nobody was expecting 300 people to show up to this club fish swap. I mean, even I was talking to like the people that set it up, and they're like, we expected a decent turnout. We didn't expect anything like this, but it's been a while. But I'm handing out stickers. I'm like, you know what? There's still a good 150, several hundred people that are in line. And then there's more people still showing up. And I'm like, I'm just going to go here, and I'm just gonna walk through the whole line and go, hey, sticker, you can check out my channel. If not, you got a free sticker. And it was great because, I had a couple, oh, that's you. And then one guy was like, yeah, I heard Aquarium Co-op mention you one time. And I was like, yeah. So it was just really, really surreal to have people that knew who I was. It just amazes me. I'm very blessed for
Right.
that. And we're all fish nerds. So you stopping, you're talking tanks. And well, what do you think about this? And it's like, well, what are you looking for? And a lot of people, honestly, were just there to interact with other fish people. I can't tell you how many people I was kind of surveying, here and there. I was like, do you have anything in particular that you were looking for today? And they're like, no, not really. We just want to come see what was here and talk to fish people. Again, with 6 months pretty much of not really having a whole lot going on, it was a lot of people ready to get out there and hang out with the fishing community.
Hey man, because we've been locked down, locked down for so long that yes, I can see
Fat
where
man,
they
have
will
a
be
great night.
super excited. Fat man, thank you for coming, through. You're very much appreciated. Yeah, we've been locked down so long. Yeah, I mean, hey, people want to get together. They want to rub elbows. And I was telling Texas Fish Room on last week, I was like, there's so many of us from Texas. We need to.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this. We need to put together the Texas Fish Room gangsters or something. But we
Go.
all, there's so many of us down here that we're falling out of the cracks and crevices now. And I'm realizing we need to mobilize and get together and do some things. That would
Most
be a
definitely.
very good thing for us to do, to get our little slice, of the fish fam gatherings. So what's this question? What's the best way to jumpstart a new tank? I personally would use all the substrate filter setup, etc., for a previous tank. But do y'all use quick start, fishless cycle, or fish in cycle? You can touch on that first.
Absolutely. So, if you have the pre-used substrate and filter, etc., I would 100% recommend transferring that over. That's pretty much how I start up all of my tanks. That was the absolute hardest thing getting back into the hobby when I did go to expand. I was so used to having all the excess media and stuff from my previous run that actually having to cycle tanks from the start, I was like, oh, I got to wait for this to cycle. Now, I do a lot of fish in cycles. I couldn't tell you the last time I did a fishless cycle. That's not necessarily for everybody, but I've done it enough times with success that I feel comfortable doing it. I also feel I have a slightly different view on cycling than a lot of people do, or maybe I just talk about it a little differently than a lot of people do. And that's a rabbit hole that I don't know that we'll digress down that one or not. That'll be up to you. But my advice would be personally, if you have the substrate and filter, move that over and you should be good to go. Theoretically, there are variables. If you're moving it from, oh, it was a tank with 5 guppies and I'm putting it in a tank with 20 African cichlids, it's not going to be cycled. It's going to have some bacteria on there, absolutely, but it's not going to be cycled to maintain that level of fish. In terms of the quick cycles or the products to help cycle tanks, I think those are wonderful if you don't have a means of getting the bacteria in there 100%. You've got Fritz, and I forget what the other one is. Oh goodness, what's the other one? I can't think of it. But yeah, there's some definite good products out there. If you're worried about it, if you're scared to do a fish in cycle, then I wouldn't recommend it. Just, you could do the fishless and to feed the little flake food and build that up. But realistically, more than likely with that used substrate and filter media, you're probably good to go.
Yeah, but I've never really even thought about the bottled bacteria or ammonia
Yeah.
or anything. Whenever I start up a new tank, first of all, early on I bought a lot of the little two foam filter, the small ones,
Yeah.
So I have those everywhere. I have them in uh, filters that I made myself. I have them in those. I have those everywhere. And I have crushed coral, a lot of crushed coral
Mhm.
in my sump. I have a sump that was for a 150 that I use
Okay.
on what I use on my little cichlid pond out there. And I'll take the crushed coral out of that. I have water that I sit around in my garage in buckets. It just sits in there. I'll take that water. I take the substrate. I take some of that foam filter media and just start it. And
Yep.
it's fish in because I'm gonna put fish right in it. And
Yep.
I have horn wart at the wazoo. So I'm gonna take a big clump of my horn wart that's been in any number of tanks I have and put that in there, and I just go with it. And my stock is never so immense to where it's gonna put any stress or strain on on the tank anyway. So as far as the crashing, I never have that issue. But I've never thought about buying, the add in bacteria because
Right.
I don't even know. I come from old school where I didn't know about this cycle early on.
Right. Right.
Over time, I just realized looking at the fish, whether my water smells a certain way, those just things that I automatically at this point know to look for.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm they sell them, and there's people that use them. So I'm assuming they're good, but I really don't have a thought on those because I don't know much about them.
Right. That's really geared towards, and I think helpful for people that are brand new in the hobby. You're just setting up your first tank. You don't really know friends that you can go, hey, you have any extra media or anything like that. I feel like those are a good safeguard to help avoid people killing off the first fish that they get, to kind of also get people hopefully curious about the nitrogen cycle. I'm very much in the same category as you in terms of I did it and came into the knowledge of the cycle after the fact. I've done the whole, I'm going to pull the filter and I'm going to scrub everything clean in the sink. And
Oh,
come to find out I killed it all.
oh, ha,
I've been there,
yeah,
done that.
yeah,
Um, but I think that they can be useful for people that have no means of getting beneficial bacteria or helping to jumpstart. But I mean, realistically, I also do like Deborah Lewis mentioned. I keep an extra sponge filter running in my regular tank so I can pull it to set up a new one. I also pull out my floss from one of my canisters, put it in a cloth bag, and anchor it down. Absolutely. I have some some tanks that might have 4 or 5 sponge filters just hanging out in there just to keep some bacteria going on them, just to keep them pre-cycled, if you will. The great thing is, if I were to pull one of these sponges, like out of this piranha tank, I've got 4 sponges in it along with the hang on back. If I pulled one of those, the bacteria would balance itself out again by tomorrow. So it's not going to cause a lot of issues.
right,
There are a couple different types of beneficial bacteria. And just to kind of overall generalize, your beneficial bacteria has the ability to double every 24 hours. Like you've got one strain that's 18 and one that I think is 14 or 12 or something. But it's just call it safe and say within a 24-hour period, your bacteria colony can double itself if there's a decent or a sufficient food source. So if you pull one filter out, don't worry that, oh, now I've pulled too much bacteria. As long as you've got a good established tank and there's other surface area that's got bacteria on it, that bacteria can double itself up. But
right.
the same is also when I reset this yesterday, I actually pulled, I've got a big pre-filter sponge on the pump that runs the water to the top tank from the bottom tank. It also helps keep, like the shrimp and stuff out. I pulled that thing and I just went and washed it in the sink. I just completely washed that thing out in the sink. And I thought about doing a little video on it because people go, no, you don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, honestly, in that particular case, I did want to do that because I was taking and more than splitting the bioload in half. And so what you can end up doing is, now I've got, we'll say about a third of the fish waste going into this tank that was going into it the day before. you're going to have all this extra bacteria that's now going to die off because there's not a food source. So then it kind of bounces down, and then it causes it to spike. So now there's a little bit extra food in there for the bacteria. So they kind of grow out a little bit more, and then they start to die off because there's not enough. And then they kind of, you have to get this leveling out point. Cycled is very, very tank specific, very, very bioload specific. So that's one of the things that I go down the rabbit hole on is, okay, this tank was cycled for, a bioload of, we'll say 30 fish. I only have the 8 at the top and the couple in the bottom now at 150 gallons of water. And I didn't want all of that beneficial bacteria in there dying off, causing a spike and causing that bounce around. Could they have survived it? Yeah, they probably would have been fine, but needed to clean the filter anyways. So I killed off all that beneficial bacteria to kind of help get it at the level I needed the load to be at a little bit sooner.
Okay. That's cool. I forgot this. I started a lot of tanks with local creek mud.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, I live in Langham Creek. Well, actually, a couple of blocks behind my house, the actual Langham Creek runs through. I have to cross it on my way home from work, and I'll go down there with a bucket and a hose when I'm gonna start a tank. That's where my crushed coral came into play, because that's what I cap with. So I'd get this mud with red worms in it and everything and put it in the tank, cap it with the crushed coral, and I'd let it sit only long enough for the debris to settle. But I'd move over my sponges, that I spoke of earlier. I'd move them over. The crushed coral was already in a tank or in my sump. I moved that over, and just go ahead and run it.
Absolutely.
I've been blessed to not, at all, have any situations where there was algae blooms or tank clouding. My biggest issue is like hair algae. That's about it. That's all I deal with. So I go on smell more than anything.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna run my nose across the top of all of my tanks anyway. And my fish room is so small, and it's in my restroom. So when I come in from work, because I work overnight at the prison,
Right.
When I come in and open the door, I turn my lights on remotely on my way home. So when I come in to feed, I'm gonna get a whiff of the closed room regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I go from there, and I bi-weekly or so, I have those buckets of water that I say that I have hanging out. I'm gonna drain out maybe the depth of that bucket of water and then run that water back into the tank. That's the extent of my water changes. And speaking of my mother taught me this, the way you use that word sometimes, but I can remember as a youngster, my mama buying me, she made sure she bought me tanks. She'd buy me this tank every other Saturday. We would break down the whole everything, put the fish in a bowl and soak hot soapy water and clean everything. So I never had an established cycle.
Yeah.
A mature tank, none of that ever occurred when I was a youngster.
Yeah.
And I would have a couple of fish that would last through it, but I was forever going to the little stores, where you'd have the 10 fish tanks all the way in the back of the store, so they were forever selling me platies and guppies and whatnot, because
Yep.
we killed off every bit of bacteria every chance we got.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things. And it's wonderful that you maintain the hobby and that your mother was, supportive in you staying in the hobby. But that's one of the things that I really work towards as kind of a personal goal, because I want to keep people in the hobby. And a lot of times something like that'll happen and fish start dying off, and either people get discouraged or parents aren't quite as supportive. There are instances where kids have worked really hard to talk their parents into a fish tank, and then something goes wrong and the parents are like, that's it, you're done with it, no more. So I very much try and help in any way I can to get any knowledge or information out there that can help people to stay in the hobby. Because it's great when we see that somebody's getting a tank or giving a tank away super cheap, on Craigslist or whatever. Oh, I can get this set up really cheap because this person's getting out of the hobby. That's wonderful, and I'm not saying it's not, but you also have to realize that's just another person that we've lost out of the community, Yeah. So I kind of try and look at that balanced perspective.
Right.
I'd rather help you stay in the hobby and work through your problems than you just say, hey, just come pick up my fish tank. I'm sick of it, So
I agree because it's however many people. I want everybody in my house to be in the fish. That I hadn't been blessed with that. But anybody else, man, I love when people message me and ask me stuff. I tell them right off. I say, hey, Hank is not by any means the expert on it. I'm pretty good at explaining things to people, and I've developed a habit over the years of not having a problem of repeating myself. So a lot of the stuff that I do that is very simple, and a lot of it is based on instinct. I can still explain
right
to people so that they'll know how to do it. I tell people, I say, go to the store, buy yourself a test kit. I'm a proponent of it, but I don't own one. I don't
right
own one at all.
right
But I don't even bring it up in conversation most of the time because I want people to go and buy those tools so they can keep their fish alive. But I don't own them.
Right. I own one, and I'm very much an advocate like you are for people learning the hobby. I definitely recommend it. I have one in case of emergencies because even like Corey from Aquarium Co-op, he's like, oh my God, stuff's going crazy. First thing I'm going to do is test my water. But that doesn't always help. That's not always where the problem is. I've had, people message me and they're like, hey, what is going on here? And we try and work through an issue. And somebody's cat had had hit the knob on their CO2 regulator, and it was cranking CO2 into that tank. And that's one of those problems you can't really diagnose, through text message or through, emails. Weird stuff happens. You never know. So sometimes you can help diagnose things, but sometimes it's just one of those you have to be there in person. And like you mentioned, the smell of the tank, the look of the tank, the way the fish behave. As you progress in the hobby, you hopefully, pick up things and you kind of learn how things should look, how things should smell. And a lot of this stuff we can spot a problem just by interacting. And that's one of the reasons I really encourage people, spend time with your tank. Yeah, it's great to be, I've got, 97 fish tanks. Are you spending time with any of them? That's part of why I won't say got rid of because I still have the empty aquariums, but part of why I broke down some of mine is I had all these amazing fish and I didn't get to really enjoy as many as I would have liked to. And so now I've got my living room, fish room set up to where everything is open to where I can sit in my chair in the room in front of my TV. I could have my fish tube, my YouTube playing on the TV or be playing a video game. And I can still see all the tanks and I can enjoy and I can look and I can, okay, well, they weren't doing that yesterday versus having tanks turned and tucked and flipped and all that stuff. And that's part of what I'll be doing in here. These tanks, which I don't know if you can see them on here, but I've got tanks that stick out into the room and then more tanks behind it. I'm going to flip them against the wall. So this is very much going to be, the walls will be tanks, but everything will be visible. I can spend more time actually seeing everything from one spot versus right now I would have to get up and go around those tanks into that corner to check on those fish. I could just turn and look and go, okay, everything looks good,
Right.
So I think having the patience and having the help, honestly, to stay in the hobby and maintain the hobby until you get to that level of success, that level of knowledge like you have where you go, I smell my tank, it's fine. Or, something smells different. What's going on? Or I'm sure you've had it happen, and I'm sure most of us have. I've been sitting in the other room before, and a water noise is different. Like we get used to hearing that very specific noise coming from
Yep.
each room with the water. So it's really easy for us to pick up on, okay, a water level is low, or a pump is picking up some air, or maybe a filter or overflow got clogged and now some water's hitting the floor or is dripping or something. That's another one of those things. You get used to it. You learn that kind of exact tone that your water has for your area, and you can spot it when it's off. So
Yep, most definitely. And see, I'm the type of guy you could probably kind of see it in this tank behind me. I used to build, biotopes as a youngster before I knew what a biotope was.
right,
I was forever up and down the street with buckets and nets. I told this story, at the very beginning back in the day, where I'd make nets out of my grandmother's stockings, and stuff like that. But I was forever catching my local fish, and I'd put, it could be refrigerator liners, old bathtubs. What I would see every day, that's what I would put in those containers. And I kind of do that with these tanks here. Like I mentioned the hair algae because it bothers a lot of people. It doesn't really bother me a whole lot because my tanks look like, if you was to do like this, the way you couldn't see the glass sides of the tank.
right,
If you looked into my tank, you'd think you was at a creek somewhere
yeah,
because the water's clear. The plants that I do have, they have their own places. And the sparse hair algae here and there. My hornwort is going crazy. My pothos, you know, my fry love my tanks. You know
yeah,
what
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm saying? I'm gonna
No,
have little critters. If you get your eyeglass and get real close, you're gonna see little diatoms and all these little things
yep,
swimming around in there. I've had so many, early on in my Betta excursions. I'd have so many Betta fry that would just show up
gotta
that
love it.
don't even supposed to be in existence, but they've
Yep,
lived in these tanks because there's stuff in there for them to eat. There was places for them to hide, and Betta fry, man. I mean, we talking about.
oh yeah,
You got a tank full of guppies. How does a Betta fry make it through?
yeah, yeah. So no, that's wonderful. I'm also a fan of the hair algae, and everything has its place. There are certain tanks I don't want it in, and there are certain tanks that I will intentionally put it in. I intentionally got hair algae growing outside in a tub so that I could bring it into some tanks.
Okay.
The same with duckweed. People hate duckweed. I hate it when it's not where it's supposed to be, but I feel it very much has its places and purposes. I use it a lot of times in my piranha tank to give them kind of an overcast, kind of dim the lights out, if you will, and give them
Yep.
some cover. And they very much enjoy that environment. It's really, really great to use as a sponge for pulling out nitrates. So it's one of those things that can really help get a tank balanced. It's going to be fun trying to get rid of it if you want it gone. But again, I think everything has a purpose in one way, shape, form, or fashion. It's just utilizing it for that purpose.
Right. Trent, welcome in. Welcome in. I saw you sneak in. Nick
How's it go?
Nick, you know the last name in your name. I'm not gonna say that, but welcome in. How you doing tonight?
What's going on, Nick?
Let me see. Sunfish Assassin, GRB, wasn't ignoring you, sir. Thank you for coming in. Brandon in. Thank you. Hey, I see your bucktooth tetra back there.
Oh yeah, they are really enjoying it in here. Let me see. Let me move the chat over so I can see what y'all are seeing. We'll throw a little food in here for them. All right. Oh, now I expanded it all the way. There we go. We're going to go with some pellets. Do a little on-air feeding here.
Yeah, I saw some of those guys at my local fish store. Man, I wanted to get some so bad, but the only problem was I would have only been able to pick up maybe two or three, and I wasn't gonna do it to them.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, there are 8 in here, which is what I got from Lucas. Um, I'd like to have a couple more. 8 is kind of the bare minimum that I would recommend. I feel like any more than that, you're really going to start seeing a good bit of aggression between them because their primary diet is scales. So that's the whole reason they have the buck tooth, and so they can actually get in there and just quickly detach that scale off. Fun fact about them, at least what I've read, I've not actually pulled one out and looked at it to determine it, but they apparently tend to be either left-handed or right-handed, meaning that you'll notice that their head's kind of slightly crooked to one side or the other, and that's
Oh,
because they like to come up and attack, if you will, from the side versus like coming directly. So say you've got a big cichlid or an African cichlid and it wants some scales off another fish, they normally just come up and, you know, mouth up against it, perpendicular. Whereas these guys, they like to come in at the side and just kind of bump in and get that bite. So they kind of have that head slightly angled a little bit so that they can get in there, snatch it, and
okay,
go. So just fun fact for the day.
gotcha. Yeah, I've been interested
Yeah.
in those guys for a long time. See, I'm a uh, how can I had guppies and platies, as a youngster, but jaws, I love jaws. Anything where there was some giant creature eating little creatures, alligators. I mean, I always loved, predators. Always loved predators. Growing up. So I still don't really keep a lot of predators like that, which
Right.
is it's still ironic. People used to have the joke, such a big dude with such little fish,
Yep.
and I tell them kind of my fish keeping kind of reflects my outward personality,
Gotcha. Absolutely.
but on the inside, I rode bulls. Uh,
Oh,
y'all forgive me. Back in the day, I owned pit bull dogs, and it wasn't just because I loved to look at them.
right.
I had roosters. As a youngster, all these things.
Right.
I love MMA. I love boxing. I had my own club security company at one point, whereas I was going to work every job. People would call in for officers or whatever,
Yeah.
but I was going to work every one. You know what I'm saying? I had
Yeah.
just, but nice, sweet guy, smiling. I'm happy all the time. I just have a
Right.
super, super, super aggressive side that's down in there.
I got you.
So
Absolutely.
piranhas, I was very interested in piranhas once upon a time,
Yeah.
but then I realized that they weren't the most excited fish.
I hear that a lot. Um, that's a whole nother tangent. Um, they're definitely different, but go ahead with your story. I don't want to interrupt that, but
I
I hear
got
that a
you.
lot. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and it was like take how the your tetradon um how they you look at them and they're always
Yeah.
they always got something going on, and that's I'm ADHD for God's sake, so
Right.
that kind of explains a lot of it too.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
I'm stimulated, sometimes overstimulated by the extra movement outside of me, but it keeps my attention.
Very much. Yeah.
Whereas if I had any fish that I would buy because, oh man, that fish is beautiful, that fish is very interesting, and if I have it in my tank for too long and it's and I'm having to sit there like this, they're gonna go.
Yeah. I can understand that. Absolutely.
And look, my tank will be filthy because the poor piranha, I'll be steady dropping stuff in there, trying to,
Yeah.
that's me now. I'm not talking about like younger me.
Right.
That would be me now. Like, I have a bucket. I'm just Come on, man. You can't overfeed them. You can't do that. But I was,
Right.
so I don't.
Well, the way that I've always set up my piranha tanks, I find them to be very active and very inquisitive.
Okay.
Uh, but it's not the way that most people set up tanks, and it's not necessarily people's fault. There's not a lot. There are not a lot of people out there that are setting up biotope-esque piranha tanks, if you will. Not that I'm doing a biotope, but I'm definitely trying to mimic a lot of things that they might encounter. Um, and I use a ridiculous amount of flow in my piranha tank as well. But people, and that's one of the things. I use a lot of flow in a lot of tanks. Not always necessarily filtration. I use power heads and things of that nature, and I always make sure they're dead spots and slow spots. And it's not just, oh, we're going to put 4,000 gallons of water straight down the tank constantly. There's break points and fast spots and currents and all of that stuff. But I've found that extra flow, specifically with the piranhas, they very thoroughly enjoy that. Like one of my favorite things to do is watch, because they'll do some of that, kind of like you mentioned. They're going to sit there and kind of hang out right at the bottom, which some people have problems with them even coming out. And that's a whole nother environmental issue in terms of how you're setting the tank up. But, some people say, well, they come out, but they just sit there. I've noticed where I've got power heads in, I've got two 1,200 gallon per hour power heads going in this 125 on top of all the airflow pushing through the sponges and the aqua clear ones in hang on back and all that good stuff. They'll very much hang out for a minute, then they'll go swim in that current. They'll go get in that fast moving water intentionally, and they'll hang out in there, and then they'll kind of fade off and go do their thing, and they might go check out this other area of the tank. But they very much like to go visit that rapid current there and kind of get some exercise, if you will. So
You think it's, because the question I was going to have, you think it's more pardon the way that I'm going to say this, but using the extra oxygen, kind of like as a stimulant. I was going to use another term, but stimulant came to mind. Or is it the exercise? I mean, not just in the piranha per se, but when I see some people who have an extra amount of aeration, the first thing will come to my mind. I know what taking in extra oxygen is going to do to me.
And that's a very, very valid point. I've not necessarily looked at it from the perspective of oxygen so much as flow, but I think that definitely could play a part in there. I think a lot of things factor into it. And that oxygen's a good one. I'm going to have to kind of evaluate that more. I will say I've seen that even in tanks where I wasn't running air to it, and it was just lots. Of course, so you're getting turnover from all the hang-on backs and the sump pushing the water and all that. But that's a very valid point. I also think that you're definitely going to do better. And this is with shoaling piranhas, not individually kept species, although I've kept some of those together, and that's a whole different ballgame. But where you might see, well, I got 3 piranhas, or I got 5 piranhas. Really, it's one of those fish that the more that you can get into a tank that's of a feasible size and a good living environment, the better the activity is going to be, the better the behavior is going to be. It's kind of like people talk about, well, I have, 5 tetras or whatever, and they're always nipping at each other. Well, we tell them add some more tetras. Well, get you at least, 3, 4, 5 more in there, spread that aggression out. African cichlids. Well, you need to get some more in there and spread that aggression out. I really feel like they do a lot better having a larger number in there. Kind of like if you throw, 3 aggressive African cichlids in the tank, you're probably going to see some issues. The difference is the African cichlids can't do that to your finger, or so they can't do that to each other.
Yeah, right.
And then, you do get the skittish issues people talk about. Then, they get scared a lot. Well, part of that's probably your lighting. It's probably a lack of environment that makes them feel comfortable so that they don't feel the need to hide. And then part of it again is, we've got 3 or we've got 5, and I'm not saying anything bad about people that have them set up that way. Again, there's really not a whole lot of people that are going, hey, this is what I have found to be, in my opinion, what works for me, in my experience, a good way to set up a piranha tank that will allow you to enjoy it and the fish to thrive. Going back to when I was breeding piranhas years and years ago, that initially wasn't my plan. I didn't get piranhas and go, oh, I want to breed them. It was, I got the piranhas, and, like with most fish that we get, I got them, they were happy, and they wanted to make babies. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
Right. We're going to touch on this question right here. John Larson says, I do not think you can add oxygen, but you can remove CO2 and other gases. Yes, but this is what I was speaking of. Okay. Let's say a power head. You're breaking up the whole molecular structure in a sense of the water.
Mm-hmm.
We know oxygen running through the mouth over the gills. Your bubbles bursting. The water is turbulent. If a fish is there and they're taking in this broken water, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but they're taking in this broken water. There's oxygen in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As opposed to, yes, if you have a bubbler, even if the bubbler is a strong one, the bubbles don't burst until they get out of the water.
Right.
So yes, you're taking the gases out. But when you're using something that's sucking air, possibly from the surface, and it's breaking up all, what I'm saying, all the water.
Yeah.
There is actually oxygen that's going through those gills.
Right. And not to debate what John's saying, because I don't necessarily disagree, but just to play the devil's advocate for a moment. You do definitely have different oxygen content levels within water. Just as I know, John, you're very well aware that warmer water has a lower oxygen threshold than cooler water. I know that's nothing new to you, John, but they have a different maximum oxygen saturation level, I guess is the best way to put it. So I think that you can definitely have, we'll say, water that's at 72 degrees that is not fully saturated to its maximum extent that it can hold oxygen, which is why you have, like, people's bubblers stop and then no oxygen, if you will. So I definitely think that you can enrich an environment to an extent with oxygen if it wasn't already an environment that was reaching its full capacity or threshold, just like warmer water. So when I was breeding red bellies, one of the things I would do would be to drop the water really low and heat it up hot before I would go through and I do the triggering and the cold water and all that, and trying to mimic barometric pressure and all those wonderful things. I would always try and get that oxygen level. I try to put more oxygen into the water, if you will, because I knew that hotter water is going to have a lower oxygen content, or they're going to burn through it more rapidly, if you will. So yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I think you can manipulate things to a minor extent.
And I'm not a chemist at all.
I'm not either.
Yeah,
I'm just me, and I know what I've
observed.
That's it. I like to dabble around and play in things as a hobby and research crazy stuff. And how does string theory work? And what's molecular? That. But I'm no expert at all.
So what do you? Well, no. Then I may actually hold on. Let me see. In my cichlid tank, my air stone goes up into a power head to smash the bubbles and move them through the tank instead of straight up.
So I've got in that piranha tank directly across from me. I don't have it where they go straight into it, just because I found that it gives a little bit too much variation in the impeller on this specific power head. If air bubbles are getting in there, you'll start to hear that rattling. at least on the one I've got, but I've got it where it's like directly at the head of it. So it's doing the same thing. It's catching all the bubbles from that sponge filter and it's pushing it across the back of the tank. So yeah, absolutely. 100% awesome. I think it was Corey Graham Cobb had a video of one of his trips to China, and he was in one of the fish shops, and they had done that. They took and ran an air stone, and then they like zip tied it to the power head, so it was doing the same thing. I think it's a great idea.
And myself, I only use bubbles when I use sponge filters, meaning early on, and I still have a few tanks in here like that, hang on the backs, power heads, different things of that nature. I would use for the turbulence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I wouldn't mind. Like I like 20 longs, but I have a 20 tall over here with a smaller aqua clear on it. The depth of the tank causes my bottom half to not be totally disturbed.
Right.
But yet that's running across the top is hitting the front of the tank, and it's still creating movement. It's still creating circulation, through the bottom. And for me, that makes for a more peaceful looking tank, but yet you're still getting your surface agitation and your exchanging of gases.
Absolutely.
And that was just one of those things of, like I was saying, just me living it.
Yep.
As opposed to being able to explain it to people. I'm like, well, no, I can show you how it's working, as opposed to me being able to break it down for them. What I was saying before that, I didn't want to go into some of the future things that you have that's still in the works, but the things that you could speak on, what do you have possibly coming that would be exciting to us? Well, and probably to yourself also. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So in terms of just overall exciting, I'm really looking forward to Aquashella Orlando this year. That's like the big thing that I want to meet as many people as I can there. I know we've got a lot of awesome people that'll be there. I did, John from KG Tropicals, I talked to him a lot. He reached out earlier, like Bob Kaler had talked about, being a part of his affiliate program. I'm really hopeful that I can make that work and it not be in conflict with some of the other things that I've got in the works, so to speak. You never know. I try not to upset anybody. I guess that's the best way to put it. I'm just trying to reach as many people as possible. And part of that is growing the channel, making the numbers. I always set crazy goals for myself. My goal for the end of 2021 is 10,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Okay.
That's my goal. Whether I hit it or not is a different story. My goal when I got into this, and this is kind of goes back to just my personal mindset. My goal is to be the first fish tuber to hit 10 million subscribers. That is my life goal. That is it. And it's not because I think that I'm deserving of that or whatever, but it's very much that's what I'm going to put my mind to. That's what I'm going to accomplish. I already see the play buttons up on the wall, just bringing that into fruition. We've had some crazy things happen for the brand, if you will. I'm on TikTok, amongst other things. I need to do more on Instagram. But the hashtag FishRoomFever is at almost 7 million views on TikTok. That's been a phenomenal thing. Kind of came out of nowhere. We've got a guy that's not a celebrity per se, but he's a verified account. He's one of the bigger accounts. He kind of picked it up and ran with it, and that kind of brought a lot of acknowledgement to it. For anybody that likes to watch a lot of viral videos, you may have heard of Lad Bible. It's essentially a company that compiles viral videos to post on their stuff for people to watch. They reached out to me the other day and they said, "Hey, we've seen some of your content. I'm sure it's the Piranha Bite. Would you be willing to let us, do a compilation of your stuff and sign this release form, that authorizes us to. And, we'll full credit to you on the video we create, and we'll get you the links and all that stuff. So that's great because they've got, depending upon which platform, 50 million followers on TikTok. So if they come and they put it, TikTok and it's got FishRoomFever on there, that's a lot of exposure. So I'm looking forward to seeing how a lot of things play out this year that I've been working towards or hopeful towards, or just, been very lucky to come across. And it very much is on me to put in the work to make that happen. I feel like if I put in the work on a daily basis, do it consistently, do it across the platforms I need to do it on, that's not a hard thing. I'm also trying to do a lot of cross-platform stuff, which is really tricky to do. It's really hard to get people to come from TikTok to YouTube. I know a couple guys that I talked to when they weren't doing YouTube. So it's funny. It's like, oh, you've got 1.2 million followers on TikTok. You've got 20 subscribers on YouTube. And they're talking like, well, what can I do? How can I set up a YouTube channel? So I've helped some people out with that type of stuff. But it's hard, it's like, oh, you've got 1.2 million followers on TikTok. And people just assume that means they've got 1 million people that'll follow them on YouTube. And then they come over and it's like, oh, I've got 6,000 followers on YouTube. And now I need 4,000 watch hours, so it's been fun interacting with some people on that level. But there's a huge fish community. And that was the point I was wanting to get to. There's a huge fish community on that platform that I really want to try and encompass them, because there are people over there that have, they don't know who KG Tropicals is. They, don't, Aquarium Co-op's not on there. They don't, who's Aquarium Co-op? What's that? King of DIY just recently got on there and he's started to take off on there. But I very much would like to incorporate that group and grow the fish community. Try and get us all together. Even on YouTube, there are different bubbles, if you will, and not just the political, I don't like you, you don't like me groups. I mean, just simply people that aren't aware of the other circles. I go in some streams and I've been in there with 100 people and not seen a single name that's familiar to me in the live chat, which is crazy considering, how well we all know each other. We look at, oh, hey, Chalupa No Tomatoes, Patrick, yeah. Dirty Platty. We know each other. We see each other all the time. We interact with each other. But there are several different fish fam YouTube circles, if you will, not necessarily they call themselves fish fam, that I would love to try and get more interaction between them to try and, okay, this is your circle of fish tube that you're in. We've got these awesome people over here too. Maybe we can kind of, help everybody expand and get to know each other and just kind of help share that knowledge, because I very much feel like, and I will say, disclaimer, I'm not old enough to have been a part of it, but there was a time in the hobby where you really had two choices if you wanted to keep a new fish in terms of finding out about that fish, and that was you either go to the library and hope something's been done on it, or you hope to run into that guy in the fish store and, oh yeah, I kept those, 4 years ago I used to keep that strain of platy, and I found out that this worked best for me. Well, now we kind of have the old fish guy, if you will, is you, it's me, we have, well, I'm not an expert, you're not an expert, this person's not an expert, but this is my experience and this is what helped me, and this is your experience and this is what helped you, and maybe your water's closer to that person's water. So I think the more old fish guys that we can all get talking, and gals, of course, but the more people we could get interacting with each other, the better it's going to be for our community and for the hobby.
I agree. What's happening, Griffin?
What's going on, Griff?
Welcome, Scott. BJ Palmer, how do? Patrick Hardy, how do? Yeah, I stuck my nose into TikTok for a second, but I couldn't figure out how to translate what I do over there. See, I'm walking right with you in one thing that you brought up, as far as like, bridging the gaps.
Yeah.
What I do right here is what I do in real life, and I've been doing for a long time. I talk to people. I look into people. I feed people, I water people, um, I grow people, and that's from a real standpoint, not a narcissistic standpoint in
Absolutely.
any way. I'm not the video guy, you know.
Right.
I've had some YouTubers that have a pretty established platform that would message me, you know, hey, Hank, try this, try that, try this. And while they're telling me, I'm like, hey, that's a good idea. That sounds good. But
Yeah.
I'm not the video guy. I want you to see what I have. I want to tell you what I'm doing. But I have no mental energy in the chronicling of that. But
Understood.
I want to sit down, like my live streams that I'm starting on Saturdays, me bringing those people from completely outside
Right.
of YouTube, but are still in the hobby. I want to bring people together, sit them at the table, as you might say, you
Yeah.
know, and just so I want to build off of that. You know, I want my my brick and mortar that I'm building this establishment with to be based off of this right here. You know, and a
Right.
lot of people would come up in my chat and they want to come up. And I'm like, no, I mean how I do it, because that's kind of chaotic to me. I can sit in a chat and listen, but if I ever come up or there's too many people, I'm gonna disappear, and
Right.
and I'm a super talkative guy, but I'm gonna like wilt away, or disappear.
Absolutely.
So, but and I know how important it is too for a lot of people to be um addressed directly, to be paid attention to be,
Absolutely.
so I know how that works, and it's been working. I just want this to get bigger. I want the followers. I want all of that, but I want a green screen behind me that says this, that, or the other. I want to move into a bigger room. I want to have a microphone right here, that's like this.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, there you go. See what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Hey, and I want a light ring that's different than this, because I have people jabbing
Yeah.
at me all the time about my rings, my eyes.
Well,
But I want to
it
do all of that, but in that capacity. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely, absolutely. So I will say, there's also, the next time you go to get glasses, look into it. There, you can get a specific coating on there. It's the one that they offer you to help deal with like the street light glare, and that's what I've got on these. And I did it before I ever was doing any videos or anything, and I was just blessed that it turns out it stops the light reflection. So that's one thing I always encourage. If you got glasses and you're going to get a new prescription, find out how much they offer that for, because that makes life so much easier. And like you mentioned, fighting with trying to get the light here, the light there, and all that stuff.
Hey,
That's my tip of the day for you.
well, see, mine, I have a problem because these are just reading glasses.
I got you. I got
So
you.
I only need them for right here.
I
You
got you.
know,
Absolutely.
I actually tried to get, I went to the eye doctor and tried to get them to, they were like, man, we're not going to take your money.
Yeah.
We're not going to try to make you no glasses because you only need them for,
Right.
and all this is right here. My chat, if I did this, I couldn't
Oh
read
yeah.
none of
No,
that.
I can't figure it out. I couldn't even tell you who was in here. Absolutely not.
Now, if I
Uh,
pushed it against the door, I could probably see it.
right. I will say, if you ever go to take pictures on that green screen down the road like you're talking about, don't have your glasses on, because unless your head is perfectly sideways when you're trying to edit out that green screen, if it catches a little bit through the corner there, that is so annoying trying to edit that part of the
Oh,
image.
okay.
That's a pain. But yeah, it's just sharing fun stuff like that. Um, but to your point, like you mentioned, bringing people into it that aren't really into it. There's a whole wealth of knowledge out there that's not even just on other platforms. It's not even on the internet. We've got the old guys in the fish club, the people that have been breeding stuff for 40 years, those type of people. Trying to get them more involved. I think that is wonderful. A wonderful case in point on that is, I'm pretty sure everybody in here knows who Rachel O'Leary is. Could you imagine if she hadn't started doing YouTube? The amount of knowledge that she has shared and she has brought to the online fish community. Um, First off, I'm not going to go too into it, but go watch Sean Peck's interview with her, and he goes over a lot of this stuff, but most of it's fairly well. She didn't really want to do YouTube. It wasn't her thing. She wanted to get to people in person and spread information and knowledge. And then finally, she got talked into doing the YouTube thing. But can you imagine, if we have another 30 Rachel O'Learys putting their knowledge and information out there, and or if we didn't have her, like I mentioned, the amount of information and knowledge she has and she's shared with the online community, I think that would be missed and we'd be a lot less enriched. So I think that's great.
I do agree. One of my favorite channels. I do agree.
Going on, Jay Oliver's.
Jay Oliver, Douglas, Ragsdale. Hey, welcome in, guys. Welcome. But yeah, man, I'm hoping. And I have an individual that's coming on tomorrow for all of my Texas, everybody actually, because his reach is way out. But for all of my Texas fish keepers, it would behoove you 1:30 Central Time tomorrow, which will be 2:30 Eastern Time. Come to my live stream tomorrow. I'm telling you, Big Tech Hank, when I put it on here, if it comes out my mouth, I try to make it something that's righteous.
Absolutely.
Check me out tomorrow. You're going to be enriched. Believe me.
All right.
I got something for you. That one, I'm so super excited about the Saturday stream because this one, organic is a good word. I can use it in different facets, but it made itself, the people learning as I was going, all of this just built itself. Whereas the one that I'm starting tomorrow has been like, while this was going on, has been something that was, that was cultivating,
Yep.
And I'm so super excited. I have goosebumps right now talking about it because I know how, man, it's something that you don't see on here, for, how can I say, for the amount of time that's going to be dedicated to the specific format, meaning staying with that, as opposed to some of what I'm going to be doing, you may have seen in bits and sparse pieces, but nobody was intentional. They weren't intentional about it.
Right.
It's going to be very intentional.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Patrick Hardy, I do want to say I really do appreciate you, and I noticed you commenting on there. Appreciate the support, and I'm really, really glad you enjoy it. I really am. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, I just saw on there Patrick is actually from Houston, right up the
Very
road
nice.
from it. That's another one of the Texas people. I'm telling you, Patrick, you just slid in. I'm trying to figure out a way for all of us Texas people. If we have to go to a park with masks on,
right?
Whatever. But we need to find a way, to build a fellowship that's not necessarily a clique, because I don't do cliques,
right?
But a fellowship because we're local that still is reaching out, and staying connected to others, because sometimes it can become cultish,
Yeah, and that's, I think, the last thing we need, and I'm sure you feel the same way, is we don't need any more micro groups or cliques or sides to be chosen, if you will.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very unhealthy. I can honestly say, James, I love people so much. With that being said, with what I'm trying to do on here, there's been, I'll say it like this. If I had a fallen for the okie doke, I might have 3,000 subs by now.
Right.
5,000 subs by now. If I'd have fallen for the okie doke.
Right.
But that's not everybody that's within the earshot of my voice. I love you.
Yes.
I've never seen you. And then the people that I have seen, you are human, you are flesh and blood, you are alive, you can hear me. You matter. You matter.
Absolutely.
Believe that. Believe that. You matter.
Yeah.
And if at the end of your day, I can come over here 1 or 2 days a week and be able to speak into your spirit, you know, and let you know you do matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody on here, man, hey, friends, the word friend means almost nothing nowadays.
And it's unfortunate. It really is.
And I mean, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good. The word is still important. It still carries the same weight. It still has the same definition.
Couldn't agree with you more.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, society, we're trying, you know, they're trying to distinguish, you know, put that fire out of, extinguish, my fault. They're trying to put the fire out of the heart, of love, of people caring about one another, of people, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, you are. It is your business. You know, well, that's not my business. No, it is your business. Please don't forget that. We should not have to look back and worry about what's coming to us, because there's always supposed to be somebody there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody should be able to reach out, handing to the next person, and that next person is reaching out and handing to somebody else, and it goes all the way around to where nobody should be worried about anything. Yes, absolutely. I understand. Wishful thinking, you know, but
I mean, I'm a dreamer myself, so you know.
Hey, I live like that in real life. I work at a prison.
Yeah.
Right now, I have a card on my nightstand that I got 5 years ago or so, with like 30 signatures on it from guys incarcerated who, underneath their signature, I was leaving this particular facility.
Right.
Which I'm back at that facility now, actually, ironically. But I was leaving that facility. Everybody signed it, and they wrote something. I said, I did. You know, something simple as this one guy was like, man, 24 hours in prison. My first wake up, and I hear this voice coming down the hallway. Food service, because I work in food service. I'm a food service sergeant. I run a shift, breakfast and lunch. Food service, get ready. And him telling me how that took him outside.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, 24 hours, you just think about it. You've never experienced this. Your first wake up, and this voice takes you outside of being there. And for the next few years, he heard that every day I worked. You know, to have somebody say, man, you didn't look at my uniform being white. You treated me like a man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's awesome.
And unfortunately, it's like I'm not because they're paying a debt to society, but it's like I'm an oppressor in a sense. My uniform represents that.
Right.
But you don't have to be that.
Yeah.
And I have a certain amount of respect. Yes, my size was a plus. Me working out, it caused people to pause. It caused them to pause long enough to hear me speak.
Absolutely.
And to realize, oh, yes, he's a big dude, but that's not what he's about.
Right.
But if I act a fool, he probably can protect himself. But
right. Absolutely.
But I have not, from day one until however many days until they go home, not been that guy. I've pulled up into a fast food restaurant and have somebody say, hey, boss, They call you boss. Hey, boss, man, I'm shift manager. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And mind you, I'm just looking at him like, okay, do I have an ID hanging somewhere? I'm trying to figure out how he knows, People, do you realize how, what if I had been one of those stereotypes? And they're not just stereotypes, they are real. They have a tendency to treat these people, well, I'm going to leave that alone. But what if I had been one of those people who treated folks like animals? And this individual no longer had white on, his hair was grown out, may have had hair on his face, whatever. There would be no way for me to recognize him, to know where I know him from. What if I had done something crazy to him while he was incarcerated?
Yeah.
I wouldn't see it coming. It happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I had a guy I pulled over to help a young man who ran his car into a ditch. On my way home from work, this 18-wheeler stops. The driver who gets out, hey, boss, y'all need... He's driving a truck. He's doing well. He stopped to help. And again, he remembered me. I still did not recognize him myself, but he remembered me. It's those little things. People, and if you didn't know, I'm spiritual.
Absolutely.
I believe in God. I believe in the things that we do have been set before us to an extent. I believe we're allowed to move, whether it be left or whether it be right, whether you get there in a short route or it takes you forever, but it's up to you. I believe those things.
Absolutely.
So where I have been placed, I know it's for a reason, because trust me, I've tried to leave, I've quit, burned my hat, I'm through.
Yep.
And then something happened, I look up again and I'm standing outside of one of those gates like this. I thought I was gone.
Absolutely.
But now I'm back. But then get inside and realize why I'm there.
Absolutely.
I use that as an example of what I do out here in the free world, people. Hey, somebody loves somebody else.
Definitely.
We have to love each other more than we love these fish. We have to.
Definitely. And it may have been that, like you said, you left and went back, that particular season of your life, you were meant to take your blessing somewhere else and, help somebody else. And then another season comes along and there you were again.
Yep. And I realize, and I love it. And that's what I want to do on here. I just want people to come together. No, we don't have to agree on any of those external things.
Right.
We don't. Because it's real easy to vote for who you want to vote for, pray to who you want to pray to. That's real easy to do. Yeah. That's yours. That belongs to you. Don't be mad at me because I don't do that. It belongs to you. But how beautiful is this Chinoides breeding pair that I have up
exactly.
here? Yes, I can show you how to make an infusoria culture because you can't afford brine shrimp. Yes, right. I can, come on now. I said in a stream, some months ago, it's just fish.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and that's very much, as I was speaking to earlier, do I expect everybody to want to go hang out and have dinner together after the fact? No, but I think we can all come together for the common good of our hobby and to help people and just be fish keepers and not be, left or right, blue or red, Christian, Muslim, whatever. We're fish keepers. That's what we are right now. No more than I'm going to ask you what your style and color of underwear is that you have on. That's your business. That's not my business. I put it in that same category, We're here to talk about fish. Everything else, that's between you, So.
Amen. Hey, Christian, Jeffrey Watts, some more Houstonians in the house. Select Pet, welcome. Yeah, man. Hey, James, man, we're gonna go and get on up out of here.
Sounds good. I got about 5 hours to get up, so I've had a blast. I really have.
I couldn't let you have another hour, man. I didn't mean to steal that hour.
Oh, no, you're good. My mom called me last minute earlier. She's like, I'm going to be there bright and early. I need you to take apart a futon for me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. No problem.
Right. Right. Hey, It's 33, 34 people in here, man. At the 1 hour and 3/4 mark, I've never seen that many people in the house. Thank y'all for coming through and just sitting with us, and taking all this
Absolutely.
in. Thank y'all very much. I want you to know whenever this camera pops on and I'm sitting in front of it, it's for you.
Very
It's for
much
you,
so.
people. It is for you.
I appreciate you all showing up. All of you that followed over the link I shared. Thank y'all. I see a lot of familiar names in here, and it's great to see y'all. And it's also fun for me when I do this, just because, like we talked about, I get a lot of people now in the live streams, and that's great, but I don't get as much personal interaction. So
Right.
I might get to talk to some people in here while I'm hanging out with you that I might not get to actually talk to one-on-one when there's 100, 150 people in the chat with, 30 questions lined up. So love it.
And it's
Really, really.
rolling.
Yeah.
Right. Well, all right, y'all. Y'all be good. I love you. Love each other. Love your fish. Peace. We're out.